Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our episode 3 review of Mice and Murder.
A time for clues.
Yes, indeed. A time for clues.
A time for clues.
Is that a reference to something?
It's reference to at the beginning of the first episode when Grant and Allie's character are introduced. Grant's like, "Oh, I don't want to go to the party," and Alicia's like, "Oh, but it might be a time for clues." And Grant was like, "Oh, well, I do like a time for clues." And then there's time for clues in this episode. That's the reference.
It's literally already self-referential. All right, that
Yep.
sounds good.
That's my favorite episode title of all time is the Crown of Candy episode, Escape from the Bulb Creeps.
Oh boy.
It's so good.
Well,
I'm Henrik.
and I'm Leland,
Woo!
and here we go. Okay, we're gonna start with an episode
Here
recap.
we are.
And I'm gonna start it because I actually remember the first part of the episode. Yeah.
The beginning was cool.
We start back in another flashback. Flashback to the Reichenbach. I mean, the whatever they renamed it to make it Mousy Falls.
The Reichen Bunny.
Oh, of course, the Reichen Bunny Falls. Because
I actually don't know if it is, but I decided so.
no, I'm pretty sure it actually was the Reichen Bunny Falls.
Is
because yeah, I'm pretty sure. Go ahead.
I just don't think it had a name.
No, it definitely did. Because
Did it?
yeah, because I remember remarking that it was like that it was a reference to Reichenbach. But we have a fairly short flashback of Grant as Sylvester talking to Fletcher Cottonbottom and the dastardly Moriarty analog, who thankfully isn't named some sort of animal pun on Moriarty.
Well, because I'm sure what happened was Grant named the character, not Brennan.
What?
Like you can tell with the NPCs when a player names a character and when Brennan names a thing or a character and when Brennan names a thing or a character, because Brennans are almost always a pun on something, and the players just like name things based on how cool they sound.
Wait, the players get. We'll have to come back to that.
Well, I'm sure it's like that's a thing where it's like, oh yeah, who do you know? And they're like, oh, I know Kevin. You know. Maybe I don't know the background stuff, but like that's at least how I would write.
I guess that makes sense.
Oh, it is the Wrecking Buddy Falls.
It is the Wrecking Bunny Falls. What did I tell you?
It's so dumb. I love it.
Yeah, but anyway,
We're already off track.
Sylvester goes over the Wrecking Bunny Falls with Fletcher Cottonbottom, and flashback ends. I'm certain that is entirely existent for only two reasons: to make reference to another Sherlock Holmes story for Sylvester, and to establish that Fletcher Cottonbottom is supposed to be dead.
Oh no, I don't think Fletcher Cottonbottom is going to be important for the story. I think that was just a cool little scene that they did. I think there's no setup there whatsoever.
How do you contextualize the ghost of Fletcher Cottonbottom?
No, that was just a cool detail. There's no setup there. That's not a Chekhov's gun. That's that's just a normal gun.
A normal ghost, you mean?
It's a normal ghost, not a Chekhov's ghost.
Yeah, there we go.
It's a Chekhov's bunny.
I didn't want to say Chekhov's bunny, and now you've said it.
And then so this episode primarily takes place immediately after the murder of the Squire William Brockhollow, who's no longer Squire Badger, because he's dead now. He's dead.
I think technically you can still call him like the late Squire Badger.
Maybe. Though I don't think you can. I think that's like the thing. It's like, it's a title. Like,
Well, I know they made a mess of it.
I guess you could say like the late Squire. But I think Squire
Anyway,
Badger is the title. Anyway, it takes place immediately
someone in the
afterwards
comments can put how English
because
royalty
we get a lot of
or
comments.
English aristocracy works.
Yes, someone of our large following who's British. Please let us know how England works, because we are stupid Americans.
I know how some of England works. I'm not
Unfortunate.
entirely stupid.
No, I mean, like they have like everyone wears crowns, and they all eat beans on toast, and
Yep,
it's always
every day.
rainy. It's
Yep.
always rainy, so they don't have toilets because they just throw their shit out in the street, and then the rain washes it away.
Exactly.
Yeah. So then everyone has their own title, whether it's like Squire or King or like Baker or like drunk person that just is always outside in that one corner and is always rambling about something and you never know what, but his breath
We
smells
call that
bad.
village
You don't
idiot.
want to be like
That's the
impolite.
title for that.
No, it's a long one. It's yeah. Anyway, yes. But yes, the
That is
Squire
how
Badger's
England
dead.
works.
That is how England works.
And,
truly a country of many wonders.
Since Mice and Murder is, of course, a direct recreation of England, that's how Mice and Murder England works as well.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Except that, just to be a little bit racist, the drunk people are all rats.
Irish
rats.
Oh, that too. Irish rats.
Yeah.
So the Squire Badger is dead. We begin with everyone's like immediate reactions to that. Like people looking like where like I think Gangi is no, it's a vicar is checking out Gangi, and Daisy and Gang are checking for like secret passages, and like, you know, all the larks are like blocking the doors, and finds Buxter outside. Like, oh my god, Buxter might be a suspect.
Yeah, because he's like,
and
he's
then-
caught in this extremely compromising position.
Yeah, and then we get Grant's amazing nat 20 that gives him all the clues in the room.
Yeah, Grant's nat 20
and then
plus
he-
9, which gives him texted clues,
29.
stated clues, and then later he just puts together information IRL by himself.
Exactly. And you can like because I watched it twice. I watched it once like with my suite mates like at normal speed, and then I watched it again at like 2 times speed like a day or two afterwards. Rewatching it, you can tell when Grant has figured it out, and it's so much fun.
That's nice.
Like you can tell like based just on how he's reacting to the clues, like this means this, and it's a lot of fun. But yeah, so he gets a nat 20. He finds out a shit ton of shit, and is able to prove that he finds out that Mrs. Molesley has epilepsy, which means that bright lights cause her to forget shit. So even though she thought there might have been someone else in the room because she might not have seen them or might have forgotten about them.
Especially because he finds a secret door in the wall.
Yes, and he also then finds out
Which
that
would have let someone exit the room despite it being one way only and guarded on that one way.
Exactly, and then he also finds out that the stuff was scattered around the room because of like an electromagnetic blast, and that there was no actual poltergeist.
Much
or
to
anything like
the denial
chagrin
of Lucretia Brockholm.
Lucretia. Yeah, we get just kind of like this episode, like it was interesting. I will get into like kind of what I thought about it later, but basically this episode serves to set up all 6 of the players as like the major suspects. Where last episode it was like setting them up to maybe have killed him. This is like explicitly stating that all of them could have had the ability to kill him.
Yeah, Brenna makes a point of going around to everyone and having NPCs remark on the various ways in which they might have killed the late
Yeah.
Badger.
Yeah. We get some some subterfuge from Daisy Dumpster and Buxter as they find a key, and then Daisy steals a note that Squire, the late Squire, had written, right, saying, Sylvester Cross, I'm afraid, and she steals the note just to fuck with Grant, evidently. If you watch The Adventuring Party.
Then they engage in the almost totally successful act of pretending to check the body for a pulse.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, was that where they stole the note?
That's where they get the key. The note was just on the desk.
Okay.
And then Daisy just stole it while Grant was monologuing in a text exchange with Brennan, which the text exchanges are so fucking cool. And I love it.
Yeah, Reika finally rolled well to get that key.
Yeah, it was great.
And then a little bit before that, also an important event, Buxter lied to everyone about the contents of the note that William Brock Hollow had given to him, because that note detailed how, as we recall, Buxter's company, or Brock Hollow's stake in Buxter's oil company, which was an enormous stake, was going to be sold off to his competitor. And I think it was a 50% stake, so it would effectively give control of the company to his competitor. But he successfully lied about that to the rest of the group to deflect any potential motive on his part. Is there anything else really important we should note?
I guess the one other thing is that it becomes clear that Gangy has worked with Fletcher Cottonbottom, but did not know that Fletcher Cottonbottom was there.
Right.
The vicar notices that the date on this bust is wrong, which probably comes up for something else later down the line.
Yeah, but other than that, doesn't do anything except get accused.
Yep. And then I think that's...
and give Grant a blessing.
Gave Grant a blessing. Daisy and Sylvester, as always, are just a lovely squabbling couple that hate each other but clearly love each other, and I love it. Your real name is Dumpster.
Her real name is Dumpster.
The highlight for me.
It's not Dumpster.
Yeah. Any general impressions?
I think pretty good. The ending was weak. I literally don't remember the ending, other than that Brennan was like, we're going to stop
Lars
here.
Lars knows what he saw, because Lars believes in ghosts, and that was the ending.
Yeah. That's kind of dumb.
Yeah.
So, not great ending. Other than that, pretty good episode. A lot of really nice interactions. Grant O'Brien has become the star of the show.
Oh yeah, MVP of this week. Definitely.
Not even MVP, literal, plot star.
Oh yeah. Got the big nat 20.
If he becomes any more star again next week, I might start to take issue with it. Grant's very funny and a good improviser, and he plays the character of Sylvester very well, which essentially helps.
I think
that gives me a lot of goodwill towards his getting made very important by the plot.
Yeah, Grant is, I think, the best actor out of all of them, the best thespian, and he can totally really play it up.
Because at the moment the plot is contriving to give him another flashback, to give him relationships with a lot of other characters, so on and so forth. And give him a lot of speaking time. And of course it helps that he had a nat 20 plus 9 on an investigation check. We might call that the anti-Reika.
The anti-Reika.
Other notable roles include, I don't even remember what it was for, but Buxter's nat 1 to nat 1 match check, followed by another nat 1 from Sam.
Yep.
Which is pretty special.
Total.
Do you even remember what that was for?
Yes, it was it was an insight check on Harding. And Harding was trying to cover something up, and Harding rolled a nat 1, and then so
And then
Buckster, basically, Brennan then gave Buckster a do-over, and he got nat 1 and failed again.
Yeah.
I would say my general thoughts on the episode, I feel like this was the weakest one so far, and that's not like a bad thing. But it was the most, nothing much happened. It was a bunch of cool revelations. But in terms of plot, not much was progressed. I think how I would put it is, Grant has like a quote when he's like beginning a spiel. It's like, I think that Sylvester has like 2 things he needs to do, and he knows that like these 2 steps will not solve the case, but they have to be done anyway, right? I feel like that was this episode, right? This episode was needed to like make the show work, and I feel like all the like it was necessary, but it was not gonna like progress anything. It wasn't gonna solve anything, or plot anything in this moment. It was like the necessary groundwork.
Yeah, I think to a great extent, Brennan needs to get them out of the room. Like, he needs to get them
Right.
going other places around the house. Because when they're all in a room together, they're just essentially chatting for the entire run.
Yes, yeah.
Which,
Yeah, and I
you know,
think, like...
I love hearing Sylvester talk. And I love hearing Lars talk. But not forever.
Yeah, I thought, like, there were a lot of good moments, but, like, in terms of the actual episode, besides maybe Daisy stealing the note, nothing actually happened. It was just a bunch of information delivered very coolly, you know?
I guess. I mean, I'm a fan of exposition, so...
I was a fan of it, like, don't get me wrong. But just, like, as... Like, it's the kind of thing, like, I can't critique, because, once again, it was necessary. But just, it didn't... It was a lot of very cool stuff with not much going on other than that. And, like, it's difficult.
I guess I can see that. I suppose I was sort of essentially slumping in my seat for a lot of it until
Right.
Daisy and Buckster started that gambit. So I can see that, definitely.
Right. It's, like,
I think
like,
you're also annoyed
it's
because
all...
Ian didn't do anything.
Ian has, like, kind of gotten the short trip since, like, episode 1. Like, it's interesting because Ian...
He just
I feel like
stood there and talked occasionally.
Ian doesn't seem like there's a reason for him being there yet. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, Brennan has given him, like, possible motive, but he doesn't feel like there's no... I like Ian and I like how Raph plays him, but I don't see a reason why Ian couldn't have just been a very fun NPC yet.
Yeah. Part of the problem is because...
I guess
Ian's...
The history check... Yeah?
Ian's a bard in a game almost built for rogues.
Right.
It's also why Lars is taking a more supporting role, and pops in to say one-liners, or otherwise be funny,
right?
Because
like,
the bulk of the
just
checks are like checks meant for rogues.
Exactly.
Like Sylvester,
like Lars,
Sylvester literally can't get below a 16 on an insight check.
Right.
And that's really helpful towards passing information around, which is like the point of a murder mystery. So it would be really nice to see Ian get some kind of role that's unique and fits his character.
Right.
In the investigation. I don't know how that's going to come together, but I'd love to see it.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see. Yeah, I guess another thing. This felt like very established, like, how the murder worked, and then it also established that the possibility that one of the player characters could be the murderer. Because remember, like, last week I was talking, like, I don't believe that one of them could be, and I believe a bit more. I don't think any of them's like the main bad guy or anything like that. I think if one of them is the murderer, then there is something else going on.
Honestly, I'm thinking now, if it's any of the player characters, it's probably Ian.
I would honestly...
not because he has the strongest motive, but because we've heard the least about him so far, honestly.
Yeah. It's, like, very interesting, because it's, like, both, like,
that he's intentionally
any of
sort of
them
behind
could
the
be the
scenes
murderer.
seeing stuff.
Right, but it feels like none of them really could be the murderer. It feels like they're all just suspects trying to clear their name simply because, like, I don't see Brennan making the criminal do like the down their luck person like be the murderer, like Gangy, which probably would make the most sense.
Honestly, ganging being a murderer doesn't make a huge amount of sense to me.
Yeah, I think they mentioned at the invention party that whoever
It wouldn't
did the
be
murder.
Sylvester. It's probably not Daisy. It would only be Lars to be funny. It could be. It
Yeah,
could still be Buxter.
but like
Buxter has
Buckster,
acted
it makes
sufficiently suspiciously to be the
but he's
murderer.
acting suspiciously in a way that it's very clear that he's not the murderer. Like, and that like
I mean,
he
he did
lost
try to
his
conceal his motive, and sort
no,
of.
but he lost his weapon and is clearly like
Oh, that's right. We didn't talk about that. Buxter completely lost his dagger.
well, I mean, lost it and then found it in the body of
Yeah,
the guy the squire. But like he lost his
MF
weapon and
12 Angry
then
Jurors moment.
he seems like because I don't know how much Agatha Christie you've read, but there's always like the secondary crime going on, right? There's often right. There's always like at the murder mystery, there's the murderer, and then there's someone else that wants something else, and they're suspicious, but only because they're trying to do that. They have this other goal, and I feel like
They're
that's
trying to do a different
Buckster.
crime, a different, less deadly crime.
Like,
Yeah,
because Buckster was scared when the light went out, and like, yeah, I don't know. I yeah. We shall see. Um,
and just to briefly
we
comment on that, there is also a bit of a difficulty in running a murder mystery around a D&D table because
mm-hmm.
you have to keep everything above board enough that like the players can communicate as players,
Right.
but if one of them is the murderer, that has to be kept away from the camera.
Yeah, and it's like
Um, so either you have to totally
the.
sideline them, which is why I think it could be Ian,
Mm-hmm.
um, or do a lot of very clever DM trickery to make it look as though they're helping everyone out and searching for the source of the murder,
Mm-hmm.
but are actually the murderer.
Yeah, I mean the
Which,
fact.
because I suppose as I say that, that means it technically could be Sylvester because Sylvester has all the control over the facts at the moment,
Yes.
especially since he got a bunch of stuff texted to him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Um,
like so. I think they mentioned on the adventuring party that whoever is playing the murderer did not necessarily know if there's someone playing the murderer. They did not necessarily know they were the murderer going in or even in this episode, and that like there is some stuff that Brennan might know about the characters that the characters themselves do not,
oh, now
um,
that's interesting.
which is interesting. And my initial instinct to that was like, oh, that's just a bad idea. But then I realized, Crown of Candy, there are like several moments where it's like, people are not supposed to get out of this alive, right? And like as a DM, like you don't ever like just in a general game, you don't want to create those moments where like someone can't survive an interaction. You don't want to create those encounters where it's like someone is going to die in this encounter and you got to deal with that. But in a season where everyone knows it's the goal of a lot of player characters to die, and it's going to be the Game of Thrones season, you can do that. And I think like with a murder mystery, Brennan could do the thing where it's like, yeah, I can't make you know that you're the murderer because then you could accidentally give it away. But know that one of you, like you all agree that one of you might be the murderer, and you all agree that if you are the murderer, you might not know you are the murderer. And you're gonna just have to play with that. And that could work because this is not like classic D&D game. This is also like for a show. So Brennan can do those tricks that otherwise, in home game he probably would not.
Yeah, it's also interesting. It's not a classic D&D game because it's an adaptation of the murder mystery to the D&D format, which
Mm-hmm.
we've seen and talked about creates some of these complications. There's as yet and probably for most of the season no combat to break up
Right.
these long segments of role play, but so far I think it's working out pretty well. Um,
Yes.
and I guess considering what we've said here today, I guess my final verdict on the episode, I still liked it more than my final rating for the first episode, so I'm going to say 7 out of
Really?
10. But could be upgraded further depending on how the information may be recontextualized in the future.
Mm-hmm. I thought this was a it was a necessary episode, and it fulfilled its necessity very well. So in that sense, I could give it a higher rating, but I think in terms of the other episodes, those other episodes are just better because more stuff happens. And this episode had to be the way it was, and I recognize that. So it's either like, do I give it a higher rating for doing a very good job at something that's not a very fun necessity, or do I give it a lower rating for just having to deal with this not very fun? I shouldn't say not very fun, but this not
Very
very
eventful.
plot heavy necessity. You know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're following my lead, you do the latter.
Yeah. Wait. As in rate lower for it, or
Rate
rated
lower
higher
for it, yeah.
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. I think it's the weakest one just because of this necessity that it has to play out, that being setting up all 6 of them as suspects and having, all this information out. It's just one long investigation check is what it is, basically.
Yeah, understandable.
And, I think that's very cool. But this would be the kind of thing, like, if this were an actual murder mystery, like movie or show or something, this would be done in like 15 minutes and then it'd move on. And of course for D&D, you can't make it that short, but it's still like,
how do you
very,
make an
very
investigation or an insight check funny every time?
cool. Right, exactly. And like, so I can't say like, I think this one's the weakest one, but it's not like a weakest one in the bad way. It's the weakest one in like, oh, now that this is all out of the way, I'm excited for what they do next, because I feel like the next couple episodes especially are going to be like really when we find out what this series is going to be like. I feel like we've not had like the definitive murder mystery episode yet, and I feel like that's going to happen soon, or maybe I'll be disappointed, but I think that's what I'm getting. Like, I think next episode is going to be like, okay, now we've got the clue set up, the murder's happened, we know everyone's a suspect, now it's just going to be them navigating that, and that's going to be the like pretty much the rest of the season, as far as, at least in my brain, that's how it's going to work. So I'm excited. This episode just happened to be like the weakest one out of necessity.
Well, we'll see how things are next week.
Yes, we will. Yeah.
Cheers. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Cheers. Like, share, and subscribe.
You know what? Let's actually make this a thing. Lady Lucretia, I've seen a ghost.
I've seen a ghost. Ciao.